So in this video we're going to talk more about strings. Now we introduced you to strings in a past topic, so we're going to dive a little bit deeper into them in this video, and we're going to be going further into strings in some coming topics. So strings are one of the things we'll probably use the most in Java. So it's important that you understand everything that I discuss in this video, because we're going to be building upon this knowledge in coming weeks. So the first thing I want you to know is strings are objects. We talked about primitives and their corresponding wrapper classes. So we have an int, which is a primitive, and we have its corresponding wrapper, integer. Now strings are not primitives and they do not have a corresponding wrapper class. Strings are objects. Every string we use will be an object. There is no primitive string type. Because they're an object, they have a class associated with them. We need a class to create an object. And because they have a class associated with them, they have constructors, they have methods, and their default value is null, just like the default value of any object. It's null until we assign it a value. You can see I've got a link here, and this is to the Java string documentation. So I'm going to click on this link. Now, alternatively, you could just search for Java strings, and you will find the string documentation. Now it's important that you understand this documentation. So everything in the default package of Java that we use has documentation associated with it, so you understand how to use it. And it's all contained in the Java docs. So you can see there's all the packages up the top here, and we'll talk more about packages in later topics. And then you can see there's a whole heap of classes here. And we're looking at the documentation associated with the class string. Now I mentioned in a previous video that wrappers are also objects, and they have obviously have a class associated with them. So you could search through here and you could also find the documentation for a double. Let's have a look. Double. You would also find the documentation for an integer. You can see there's a lot of things in here. Where is it? Integer. Here you go. So you'd see there's documentation associated with every class that's contained within the default version of Java we're using. So today we're going to have a look at the string class. But have a look around these documents. Make sure that you understand them, because we're going to be using particularly the string documentation throughout this subject. But as you get better at programming, you're going to start looking at the documentation for lots of other classes to see what methods are available to you, what constructors are available to you. So the documentation for class string will start off with a description of what a string is. Then there'll be the constructors, and you can see there's lots of constructors for strings. And then what we're interested in are the methods. And you can see there's lots of methods we can use on strings. And so today we're going to have a look at a few of them just to get you started, and we'll look at some more in the coming weeks. So let's have a look at this particular one we're going to see today, length. Now if I click on the length link here, it will take me to the part of the document that explains what length does. So in this case, with a string, we have a method called length, and this is going to return the length of a string. So let's have a look at a few of these methods, but please make sure that you have a read of the string documentation, you understand it, read about the methods that are associated with a string. You're not going to use most of them. I mean, I've been programming Java for a long time and I probably only ever used half of them, if that. But we're going to go through the important ones in programming too, and we're going to start that today. So let's have a little bit of a look at some code. So you can see here I've got a method called test string functions, and I've declared a string sum string. Now remember, when we declare a variable, always lower camel case. So I've said string sum string equals I love Java and learning it is a lot of fun. Whether you agree with that or not at the moment, maybe you're finding it frustrating. I understand that it can be sometimes, but it can also be a lot of fun, and this is the string we're going to play around with. So the first method, given that we're declaring an instance of string, this is an object. It's an instance of string, and string is a class. So we're going to have a look at the contains method first. So let's see what that does. Let's have a look at our documentation, and we'll go down to the contains method. Here we go. So contains returns true if and only if this string contains the specified sequence of char values. So what does that mean? Well, if I go SumString, so that's my object of type string, dot contains, so I'm calling the contains method on SumString, and I'm asking, does it contain the word love? So here we go. I love Java and learning it is a lot of fun. Yes, it does. It contains the word love. So this should print out, yes, it does. Else, no, it does not. And we looked at this, these if statements in topic 2, and we're going to continue with those today. So you should know that this is checking if something is true, do this, else, do this. So if SumString dot contains love, print out yes it does. And we can see that it contains love, so it should print out yes it does. And we'll run this shortly. The second one we're going to use is length, and we just had a look at length before. It should return the length of that string. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, so on and so forth. It will tell us how many characters are in the string. Now this is an interesting one, substring. Let's have a look at the documentation for substring. So we'll go back up to the top. All right, substring. And you can see there are actually 2 substring or 3 substring methods. Not subsequence, sorry, 2 substring methods here and here. One that takes 1 integer and one that takes 2 integers. And we've talked about this. This is called an overloaded method. We can have 2 methods that have the same name so long as they have a different number or a different type of parameters. And we're using the one with 2 parameters. So let's have a look at the documents for that. Returns a string that is a substring of this string. It begins at the specified index and extends to the character at the end index -1. So what does that mean? Well, this is going to look at this string and it's going to cut a piece out of it. It's going to return a substring of this string. So here we've got SumString, which is the object. We're calling the substring method and we're passing it the 2 parameters it requires. Now you'll notice the first one is 0 that I've passed. Well, strings, when we start counting their index, if we're doing something like substring, we start counting at 0. And you're going to see that's true of just about everything in Java. When we look at indexes of things, they always start at 0. So the I will be in position 0, then the space is in position 1, L is in position 2, O is in position 3, V is in position 4, E is in position 5. Don't confuse that with the length. The length is going to return the actual length. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It will count them. But when we look at the index of a string, this is position 0, position 1, position 2, and so on and so forth. So this is going to start at index 0, and it's going to cut it out up to index 6. And if you look at the documentation, it will return the string at end index -1. So what that means, bringing back up my code, is it's going to take 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 6 minus 1 is 5, so it's going to, the new string, sorry, I shouldn't say the new string, it will take, the substring will go from 0 up to index 5. So if I was to go 0 to 10, it would go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it would return I love Jav. In the case that we just had, it will return I love. And I could put something like this here. I could start counting at index 4 if I wanted. So I'm just putting a beginning index and an end index, and I'm taking a substring from that string. And we'll have a look at this when we run this. Now, to uppercase is quite self-explanatory. It's going to return the string all in uppercase, and to lowercase is going to return the string all in lowercase. And we can have a quick look at those, just to get you familiar with the string documentation. So to uppercase converts all of the characters in the string to uppercase. So let's run this. I'll have to compile it. I will create a new instance of topic 3, and then I will run test string functions. Okay, so let's have a look at what it does. So if some string contains love, yes it does. It's true, it contains love. The length is 43. Some string.substring 0 as the start index, 6 as the end index returns I love. Some string to uppercase returns I love Java and learning it is a lot of fun. Notice it's all uppercase. To lowercase returns I love Java and learning it is a lot of fun, all lowercase. And I threw one last one in there. We looked at this last week. Remember, we call that string concatenation. If we use a plus sign on two strings, it adds them together. So hello and there. So once again, we've got a string object. It's an instance of type string. So because I have a string object, I can now call strings methods. And we have had a look at a few of them. Have a look at the Java docs and you'll see there are a lot more, and we'll explore some more in the coming weeks.